I didn't realize that the clouds were in such a way that it almost looks dark out. Hopefully I can get a little bit of a video in here. Holy moly. Guys, today I want to talk about tattoos. When I was in my 20s, tattoos were incredibly popular, and I think I know why. Do you guys remember when Dennis Rodman started going crazy with the hair and with the tattoos? Once he started getting it going, slowly but surely, other NBA players started getting tattoos. NBA players got so many tattoos, in fact, that they got to a point where it's almost impossible to find an NBA player who didn't have one. And again, I'm talking about the 90s and 2000s. So when it was in the 2000s and I was in my 20s, almost everybody I knew was getting a tattoo. So I have a feeling if you were a tattoo artist, you were probably making some good money.
I opened my first shop in 2010, and back then supply and demand was very different. You couldn't just order a tattoo kit online. Suppliers only sold to licensed shops, and they even called to confirm that you actually worked under that shop. Now, the market's wide open. Anyone could get equipment, and there are more artists than ever before.
When I owned my first house, I decorated it in artwork that I bought at the Starving Artists little auction. Really cool stuff, really good prices from artists that normally wouldn't make that much money at all. I think a lot of them went into the tattoo business, and there's a problem now.
Lately, I've been noticing more and more shops closing, reputable artists quitting, they're moving on to different careers. People who once loved tattooing have completely fallen out of love with the industry. Clients now have endless amounts of options, and the battle is often over pricing and not the artistry. Is this just the new reality of chasing an art career in today's world?
When people have money, they spend stuff on tattoos. But I want you guys to take a look at this guy. This guy has a TikTok channel called By Albert, and he's a tattoo artist that had his own company back in 2010. That's when he started. But he was saying that back in 2010, not anybody could be a tattoo artist. As a matter of fact, you had to be able to buy supplies. And back then, suppliers would really verify that you were actually a licensed tattoo artist. Fast forward 15 years, and apparently now, anybody can get tattoo equipment. And because of that, anybody that can draw actually can do their own tattoos, and therefore the market is saturated. And he was saying that people no longer care how good the artist is, they really just want to get a tattoo for cheaper prices, because apparently, just like everything else, tattoos have gone through the roof through the last 15 years or so. When I was a kid, the thought was get a tattoo that you could hide under a shirt, because you never know if the guy interviewing you is going to hire you or not hire you based on your tattoo. And if you can hide it or not have any tattoos, you couldn't offend anybody. But if you did have even one tattoo, that could cost you the job. Believe it or not, parents used to say the same thing about piercings and weird hairstyles. You remember if you had a guy with a mohawk and a weird facial piercing, that might cost you the job. Nowadays, people are okay with tattoos, but people are getting them less and less frequently. And Albert was a little freaked out because where a couple years ago, a lot of his buddies had thriving tattoo shops, now many of his buddies are actually going out of business.
All right, no one has money for tattoos, because nobody wants to pay $350 per hour for a tattoo. Yeah, I think money's got a big deal with it. Unreliable, they cancel appointments, ego. I think it's more than that. I think a lot of people are just opting out of it. Because shop artists are pricing themselves out of the job, thinking they're God gifts to the industry, when in reality they're a dime a dozen. Yeah, it's oversaturated in that market.
Back when I got a tattoo, you could get a pretty decent sized one for about $100 to $200. But people nowadays have their whole bodies tattooed. They call them sleeves, right? Where you get your arms done. I see homeless people with tattoos sometimes, and I think to myself, my goodness, if only they had those thousands of dollars back in their pocket. And some of those tattoos might have actually cost them some job opportunities. How sad. One of my favorite YouTubers is Jack Morgan, and this was off of his channel. He was doing a reaction to this tattoo artist named Albert. And one of the things he said was that back in the day, people would get tattoos because grandma and grandpa didn't have one. Well, now all of us Gen Xers are becoming grandma and grandpa, and in many cases, because our tattoos look like shit, the younger generation is choosing not to go that route. Thank God. You know, as goofy as it sounds, all the tattoos on my body probably equate to less than $400 or $500. But if I could take these off my body, I think I'd rather have the $400 or $500. If any of you guys have tattoos that looking back you wish you wouldn't have even done, let me know. And I hear that tattoo removal is actually the business to get into. Could you imagine making millions of dollars off of removing other people's horrible tattoos? Some people do get tattoos that are just so ridiculous. It's like, God, that looks like a first grader drew it. And then a lot of times you find out they drew it themselves. It's like, oh my goodness. Marcan 471 says, I always knew this day would come. A lot of people say they'll look bad when you get old. I say they look bad when you're young. Sometimes you'll see a really good-looking girl and she'll have a lot of tattoos. And right now, while she's in her 20s, it makes her look a little edgy. But pretty soon, as they get into their 30s and all of a sudden their teeth don't look so good and they start to develop wrinkles and gray hair and a bad attitude and a third and fourth child with a second and third daddy, pretty soon they start to look like crap. I think, even though I have tattoos, I think I would recommend my family members stay away from people with tattoos.
I got my first tattoo. It was my buddy Duck. That was his nickname. And he got a tattoo gun somehow. He just got a tattoo gun and he was practicing on himself. So we were at a house party one night and I didn't even think about getting a tattoo. No one would let him give him a tattoo. So I said, fuck it. I was stoned. I'm drinking. And so he gave me my first tattoo right on my left butt cheek.
That's how tacky tattoos are. When I got them, it's because it really was a rarity. But looking back, even when I got them, most people that had tattoos back in the day were really legitimate badass people. That's not really me, you know? I was part of the generation that said, this is cool. Not really cool, guys. Don't do it. Hoffner62 says, ooh, I almost fell there. Make sure you hit subscribe. This job's dangerous. Hoffner62 says, tattoos have always been way overpriced. And now that nobody has any money, it's one of the first things people stop getting and wasting money on. Bye-bye tattoo workers. See, I don't think that's cool. Most people that get tattoos do it because it's fun and they want to get a tattoo. And most tattoo artists do it because it's a good living, right? They're not doing anything wrong. And now that we're like, hey, bye-bye tattoo workers, I don't like wishing people bad luck. I don't like saying, hey, you're out of a job, ha, ha, ha. There's nothing cool about that. That's one of those weaknesses that we as people have. We need to uplift others instead of putting them down all the time. My buddy Justin, we walk by his house regularly. He has a tattoo shop. I wonder how he's doing. Igor Povar says machines will be tattooing perfectly at a $0 labor cost sooner than you can complete an apprenticeship. That was another thing. I guess apparently back in the day, to become a tattoo artist, you had to go through an apprenticeship. I don't know if that was a 6-month process or a year process or how long, but if people can just get the equipment and bypass that nowadays, how do you compete with a market full of tattoo artists? You go online, how are they going to know that you're better than the next guy? It's almost like you have to learn how to do a thumbnail, right? So you become like a content creator just to show people that you're a world-class tattoo artist. Seems like an awful pain in the ass. Tattoo artists used to be more private. Now you have to be a super extrovert.
What? You want to get a tattoo from me?
SPH Alpha says tattoos are very useful. They help me quickly identify people who have poor long-term thinking.
And so he gave me my first tattoo right on my left butt cheek.
It's not that cool after you've been staring at it in the mirror for 20 years, you know? SS4 Vegeta says this just proves that the only reason people get tattoos is to get attention. Well, if everyone has tattoos, then you no longer stick out for having them. That's a great comment right there. When I got my tattoos, it was because back then hardly anybody had them. Well, now every Tom, Dick, and Harry has them, so now you actually look better not having them. Think about this. You're actually rewarded for not getting tattoos now. For the longest time, people, you know, felt like they needed to get them, so they're cool. Drummer Ava says times are tough, and it's making everyone realize how effed in the head everyone has been when times were good. Yeah, could you imagine if you had thousands of dollars in your 20s, and instead of investing that into your future, you put it into ink on your skin? That is a lame thing to do when times are good, because those same people are the ones I see at the homeless bus stop sleeping. They've got all this thousands of dollars worth of ink on their skin, and like this guy said, it's really just a marker of how many stupid decisions we make in life, you know?
So I said, fuck it. I was stoned. I'm drinking.
Heart and Soul says tattoos aren't cool anymore, question mark. They never were. And then you start to realize, oh my God, this person's right. Tattoos aren't cool. When everybody gets them, they become a commodity. They're like shoelaces, right? Do you ever look at shoelaces and think, wow, them shoelaces are cool? No, well, tattoos have become no different than shoelaces. I know there's some tattoo artists saying, thanks a lot, Jesse. No, I want you to do well. But I want you to do well because people want to go to a good tattoo artist. And I don't want you replaced by artificial intelligence. That's the thing that's so shitty. Because we have this race with Russia and China, we can't even put the brakes on this AI that's going to take everyone's jobs. It's going to be a crazy world, but aren't you glad that we're alive to watch it all happen? If you want to stay alive even longer, then contemplate joining me every single day on a walk like Sean and Mala and AZ Raccoon and Micah. Who did I miss? Carla and Terry the Terrify and everybody else. Make sure you hit the like button, and I will see you tomorrow. Don't get any more tattoos or nose rings.